Are you trying to edit a documentary, but you don't know where to start? Do you have hours of B-roll and interviews to sift through? Do you feel like this project might be a little bit over your head? I felt that way too when I started editing my first documentary. But today I'm going to share with you a couple editing and organizing tips that I picked up along the way that really helped streamline my process. Hi, my name is Gabby and I'm a multimedia specialist here at SkyPalm Studios. Between all the other projects I shoot and edit for our team, I've also been working on a 45-minute long documentary. It is by far the most difficult and time-intensive project I've had to edit. It's even harder than weddings. So let's jump into a couple different platforms I've been using to help keep me organized and to get through this edit. So first I want to preface that I use Milanote, Google Docs, and DaVinci Resolve Studio for my pre-production and for my editing. There are countless other options, but I prefer these platforms because I found that they were the easiest to use. And for the most part, they're free.
Oh my God! Wow!
I'm a visual person and I like to write down my ideas. I think it's beneficial to be able to look at your outline so you can make sure you're sticking to the story that you set out to tell. Starting in Milanote, this is what I use to get down the overall flow. I use the film storyboard template because I can lay out each part of the documentary in a linear way, so it's very easy to see how I want my edit to flow. This board isn't anything crazy because I didn't want to spend a lot of time on outline, but I titled each card with the name of the act. Then I used the photo within Milanote software to add to the visualization. And finally, I added a very brief description of what the focus would be on for each act. And that's it. Just like that, you have a super nice visual that you can reference back to whenever you need it. This step may seem like overkill, but when you're several weeks into an edit, it can help keep you on the correct path. Next, we're going to move into DaVinci Resolve. If you use anything other than DaVinci Resolve, make the switch immediately. I'm just kidding, but not really.
Stop it. Get some help.
Anyway, anything that I can do, you should be able to also do in your own software. DaVinci recently added a feature that can transcribe your audio with just one click. It's probably my favorite feature, and I find myself using it anytime I have to edit dialogue. It's truly mind-blowing how much time it saved me, especially for this documentary. So the first thing you want to do is import your interviews, drop them into a big timeline, and sync all audio if you used external mics. I'm big on labeling all of my timelines, so I've come to call these master TLs because they have completely uncut versions of my clips. Aside from using these timelines to transcribe your audio, they're also nice to have as backups in case your audio and footage ever unalign, because trust me, it happens and it's a pain to fix. The way I organize my interviews into timelines is by category or the date that it was filmed. So all my interviews with the family from February are in their own timeline, then fans that were interviewed at the concerts have their own timeline, etc., etc. This just works best for me because I don't want to have to scrub through an entire timeline of different types of footage if I just want one soundbite. Also, since DaVinci will transcribe the entire timeline, it's just easier to manage when you're putting your transcription into Google Docs, but more on that later. So now that all your media is dropped in and synced, you can start transcribing. In DaVinci, all you have to do is go up to the top and hit this button. That's it. It's really that simple. It takes a while depending on how long your timelines are, so what I would suggest is doing this step first, and then while it's running, moving into pre-production in Milanote. After your audio has transcribed, it's time to move over into the Google Docs. Now, you can make the step as complicated or as simple as you want. What I'm going to do is run through what my doc looks like so you can see what a more detailed version of this step would be. As you can see, I've organized my transcript into two parts: the day the interview was shot and the people interviewed on that day. I use headings like this so all the categories pop up in the outline and I can easily click into the interview that I want. Now, as you drop in each person's interview, I recommend giving the text its own color. So, for example, Conrad, Chris, and Adeline, each one has their own separate color. You'll see why this is important in a second. During the process of gathering interviews for this doc, I was only able to attend one of them. So I've had to spend a lot of time reading through these interviews. Was it time intensive? Absolutely. But when I'm editing, I feel confident that I'm using the very best sound bites that move the story along. This is also beneficial because you can see what you're lacking. We had one final interview to shoot, and because I knew what content could move the story along even further, I knew what questions to ask our subject. Now that I'm ready to start reading the interviews, I've picked a couple highlight colors to mark the sound bites that I think are important to use in the doc. The key at the top shows what each color represents, and now you're ready to start reading. Okay, now for the next step using Google Docs. You're gonna do this in a separate document, so you're gonna have both open at the same time. Even with all the sound bites highlighted, your transcript doc can still look very overwhelming. Mine certainly is, because it's sitting at 138 pages. So what we're gonna do to keep track of the sound bites that we wanna put in the final edit is put them in their own transcript. This is why we color coordinated each person earlier. You won't have to stop and add a label when you drop in their sound bites. The reason I like having a transcript that corresponds to the actual edit is because I can read through the flow and make sure that it makes sense. So you may be asking yourself, what is the point of all these steps? I promise it all comes full circle. Let me show you. Coming back into DaVinci, now it's time to actually edit your footage. Do you have the soundbite that you want to open your first act? Perfect. Let me show you how easy it is to drop it in. All you have to do is go back to the timeline that the edit is on. Bring up your transcript and search a couple words that are specific to that quote. Within the soundbite, I suggest choosing a word that's not very common so it's easier to search. And just like that, you found your soundbite. When you have your soundbites laid out in a second transcript, it's very easy to just move from soundbite to soundbite and then find it in DaVinci Resolve and drop that into the timeline. Documentaries are probably one of the most complicated projects that you could edit. There is so much content involved, and you probably won't even end up using the majority of it. However, staying as organized as possible can save you, big time. Thanks for watching, and drop a comment below if you found any of these tips helpful, or if you have any documentary editing tips of your own. Follow our YouTube for more tutorials like this, and we'll see you next time.